Germany is one of the larger countries of Western Europe, but compared with the United States, it is smaller than the Great Lakes region. It is an industrious country of cities, towns, villages, and flowing through western and southern Germany, the Rhine River gives its name to the historic Rhineland. One of the most important waterways of Europe, the Rhine River carries busy boats and barges along its steep and craggy banks, past ancient castles, river cities, and romantic towns, to the manufacturing centers of the lower Rhine. One of the old Rhineland towns is Kaub. Under the weather-beaten tower of the city hall, 4 German boys are planning a hike. The boy at the left, Peter Müller, is the leader of the expedition. Next to him is his cousin Hans, who came to spend his vacation in Kaub. Kurt and Walter are Peter's classmates. The boys decide to take a trip on the Rhine to the town of St. Goar, 10 miles away, and from there to climb a mountain called Spitzenstein. "See you at daybreak," they shout in parting. The streets of Kaub are old and narrow, as they are in many German towns. On their way home, the boys have a few errands to do. First, they must go to a butcher shop to buy sausages for the hike. The butcher's wife, like owners of other small shops in Kaub, sells only homemade meats. Smoked Thüringer Wurst is very good, and it doesn't spoil easily in summer. "This Wurst costs 6 marks, says Frau Gross. The mark is the name for German money. 6 marks is not too much for a whole sausage. Down the street from the butcher shop is the bakery where the Müllers usually trade. Peter goes in to buy a dark bread called pumpernickel. German people like dark bread as well as white bread, and some think it is more healthful. While Peter gets his pumpernickel, Hans looks at the beautiful houses in the old town. As in other parts of Germany, some houses in Kaub are centuries old. In this house, with a typical postal sign, is the post office. And this one is the sign of the Old Town Inn. Here the boys must make way for a truck in the narrow street. But down on Main Street, the road is wide and automobile traffic is faster. Peter lives in the street where his father and grandfather were born. The Müllers and their neighbors are fortunate that their town has not been damaged in the many wars. Before dinner, the boys get their hiking gear together. "Try the binoculars," Peter suggests. "You'll want to look around on the top of the mountain." Meanwhile, Frau Müller is preparing salt pork for dinner. German people eat a lot of pork because it costs less than other kinds of meat. The boys are still talking about the hike. Peter's father is a riverboat pilot, and tomorrow he will have barges to guide down the river. He will take the boys with him, first thing in the morning. Meanwhile, the Müllers enjoy their pork, sauerkraut, and potatoes. Sister Otti helped Mother prepare dinner. She is pleased that everyone seems to be liking it so well. The first part of the trip is a ride on a motor launch from the dock out to the river channel. There, boats and barges are waiting for pilots to take them through the tricky waters of the Rhine between and St. Goar. 2 mountain ranges have squeezed the river at this spot and made it narrow, fast, and dangerous. But pilots like Herr Müller know how to avoid the dangers. Herr Müller's father and grandfather were pilots on this river, and he knows every boat and all the captains on the Rhine. There are many passenger boats on this river. This big boat goes all the way downstream to the big cities of the lower Rhine. Herr Müller points up to the cliff. This flag is a signal for boats passing through the upstream channel. All barges must obey the traffic rules on the river. Most of the freight in this area is shipped by water, and so barge follows barge along the way. In about an hour, the boys arrive at St. Goar. Herr Müller pilots boats only between Kaub and St. Goar. Then he waits for another barge to take upstream to Kaub. The launch takes the boys to the landing place at St. Goar, where they will start their hike. "Don't be late," he shouts as the boys wave goodbye. St. Goar is at the foot of a mountain, and most of the streets go uphill. The path leads through an old gate and over steep land that once belonged to the lords of the castle, but now is owned by farmers from around St. Goar. The climb seems steep, but Peter says, "This is nothing. Wait until we get higher up." But to Hans, who comes from the city, this looks like hard climbing. The Rhineland is known for its fine grapes and wines, and the path takes them through vineyards planted on the steep sides of the mountain high above the river towns. Down below lies St. Goar. Here's a good spot for a look at the castle, and a chance for Hans to use the binoculars. The castle is called Schönfels, which means beautiful rock. Long ago, lords and princes lived in such castles, making war on their rivals and levying toll on those who would pass through the river. Now the real climb begins. But farmers are growing crops even on the steepest slopes. Here we are at the top of Mount Spitzenstein, which means pointed rock. The boys choose the highest point. From the rocks at the summit, the view opens on the Rhine valley below, the green slopes, and the blue haze that so often shrouds the river. At lunchtime, the dark bread and the smoked sausage taste good in the brisk mountain air. But the boys still have a long walk ahead of them. Peter wants to show his cousin Hans the villages around St. Goar, so they take a different way back. Many people in this part of Germany are farmers. They live in nearby towns and villages, but their fields are scattered all over the foothills. In this crowded valley, farms compete with industry for space. Here is a slate mine. The afternoon shift of miners is just leaving the quarry. Village wells like this one are a common sight in rural German towns. Peter remembers an old friend of his father's, Herr Pelz, the cooper. Coopers make barrels. "Guten Tag, Herr Pelz," he says. "Meet cousin Hans." This is the way most barrels are made in the wine region of Germany. Rhinelanders believe that wine keeps better in wooden barrels. A new adventure, riding in an ox cart. Here, most farmers use ox or horse-drawn carts. Their farms are too small and the hills too steep to use much farm machinery. Some farms in this area may only be as large as a couple of acres or so, but there's room enough for flower and vegetable gardens as well as the vineyards. The wives of miners and factory workers and the older men tend most of the farms around here. On small farms, tools are simple and much of the work is done by hand. Here, the farmer and the boys part. "Dankeschön. Thank you," shout the boys. They take the road to another historic town, Oberwesel, way down on the river. Peter promised Hans to show him a famous old church. It is very, very old, but the wall around it is even older. It was built by Roman soldiers long before Christ was born. Hey, listen, band music. Weinfest, the yearly celebration of the wine growers at Oberwesel. During the wine festival, farmers and townfolk in the Rhineland often dress in the rich, colorful costumes like these, worn by farmers of long ago. It is time to board the boat again, to go up the river, home to Kaub. Traveling on the Rhine is a great thrill for Hans. Although he was born in Berlin, many miles away, he has heard a lot about the Rhine River, about the great industrial cities in its valley, about its beautiful churches and castles. Just now, the boat is approaching the famous Pfalz Castle in the middle of the river, where it has been guarding the Rhine for centuries. Lords of the chains across the Rhine to force boatmen to pay them tolls for passing. From sunrise to sunset, the Rhine is a busy river. One of the most important waterways of Europe, the Rhine River carries busy boats and barges along its steep and craggy banks, past ancient castles, river cities, and romantic towns, to the manufacturing centers of the lower Rhine. One of the old Rhineland towns is Kaub. Under the weather, Germany is one of the larger countries of Western Europe, but compared with the United States, it is smaller than the Great Lakes region. It is an industrious country of cities, towns, villages, and flowing through western and southern Germany, the Rhine River gives its name to the historic Rhineland. Butcher shop to buy sausages for the hike. The butcher's wife, like owners of other small shops in Kaub, sells only homemade meats. Smoked Thüringerwurst is very good, and it doesn't spoil easily in summer. This Wurst costs 6 marks, says Frau Gross. The mark is the name for German money. 6 marks. Eaton Tower of the City Hall. 4 German boys are planning a hike. The boy at the left, Peter Müller, is the leader of the expedition. Next to him is his cousin Hans, who came to spend his vacation in Kaub. Kurt and Walter are Peter's classmates. The boys decide to take a trip on the Rhine to the town of St. Goar, 10 miles away, and from there to climb a mountain called Spitzenstein. See you at daybreak, they shout in parting. The streets of Kaub are old and narrow, as they are in many German towns. On their way home, the boys have a few errands to do. First, they must go to a